Yes.
Bentonite is good for pulling out toxins.
Yes, it is. Bentonite's very good for pulling out toxins.
I have a problem with that because I want to replace zeolites with bentonite because, you know, they look like the same to me, except bentonite is fairly cheap and zeolite is exorbitantly expensive. The problem I have is the bentonite is aluminum base, and aluminum's been linked to Alzheimer's.
Yeah, there's no question about that.
Is that a concern?
So to be realistic, it's a very good question, and I haven't done enough research on it to really answer your question. I've definitely used bentonite clay over a large period of time for being able to pull toxins out and never seen any link to it. You're doing it for a short period of time typically when you're doing it. And almost all protocols using bentonite seem to be very cleansing in nature. You got to realize our crust of our earth is aluminum based basically, so you're going to find it everywhere as background noise. I don't know how much aluminum would actually absorb from the bentonite to be problematic or not. Until I did more research, I'd give you thumbs up on the bentonite over the zeolite. But I might come back to you and says, whoops, you won't remember what I said last time because now you've got Alzheimer's from all the aluminum you've taken in. But I've taken the bentonite myself and I can still remember taking it. So it can't be that bad. So I don't have a good answer for that, but there's all kinds of aluminum-based muds and stuff like that that really absorb the minerals towards them. So some of the traditional therapies that we used to use in that are a psyllium bentonite clay mixture, along with other things, being very, very useful for pulling toxins out of the body. Yes?
Back to the chlorella thing. So you would recommend it for a breast feeding mother, but would you recommend it for a pregnant woman? Or would you say that, I was told that spirulina was a better recommendation.
Okay, so first of all, so there's several questions there. I want to separate them out so we get them all right. First of all, I'm extremely conservative in a pregnant woman, meaning I want to do as little as possible. I would have no problem for a person taking something like chlorella to up their chlorophyll content, to clean out their bowel and sweeten up their bowel. I wouldn't be using the quantities I'm really trying to cleanse the body with a pregnant woman because I don't think you should be cleansing while you're pregnant. Also, it can be slightly laxative, so small amounts. When we're talking small amounts, I'm talking 500 or 1,000 milligrams of chlorella twice daily. I would have no problem with that. If you start going over that to get to a laxative level, it could be problematic just because it's downward moving. As a practitioner, way more attractive to chlorella than I am to spirulina. As a species, we never lived in an environment and or consumed spirulina. It's literally as a species, we're almost allergic to spirulina, where we're not to the chlorella. In that sense, there is one exception that I can really think of. We have found that the spirulina really works well in heavily exercising individuals. And they almost have their own physiology with people doing huge amounts of bodybuilding, muscle building, aerobic exercise. The spirulina seems to work good in them for some reason. I don't have a rationalization why.
Okay, because I heard, I had a pregnant client and she had really low iron levels and she was also a vegetarian. So I talked to my teacher at the time and she said spirulina is a really good source of iron. I don't know.
I don't have good enough evidence that spirulina is good in iron. I mean, there are lots of sources of iron. If I was trying to give the best iron to a vegetarian pregnant woman, I would definitely do an iron chelate. It's the most absorbable by far. And the science really, of course, heme is the best, but that's not going to work for a vegetarian. So I would give a iron or ferric chelazome or iron chelate. There are several companies that produce that. The company that I like the best, several companies that sell their product. The one I use is Tropic, but there are other companies out there, but usually they're more. The albumin process of chelating seems to be more superior than any of the other chelation processes I've ever seen. And it brings up the hemoglobin. I've had patients that can't bring their hemoglobin up for 10 or 15 years, and within 3 months of taking that, their hemoglobin and or iron stores are high. Yes?
I was under the impression that the Mayans consumed spirulina as a staple food in like cakes.
You were under the impression the Mayans consumed spirulina in the form of cakes. I don't have that evidence, so I can't comment on it. It doesn't come from the environment they live in, so I have a hard time understanding that.
I thought
To-
that there was like in a lake apparently near or something like that.
Yeah, but you see, spirulina only lives in salt water. It doesn't live in fresh water, so that kind of blows that one out of the water. So to me, that sounds like a marketing spin, to be honest with
I
you.
even had some like Mexicans come into the light cellar and they were like just like saw the spirulina azteca and they bought it because they were like,
Okay, so again, that it's information I don't have.
Yeah.
So is it a local myth that's being created in Mexico in the last little while or not? I don't know that. So my evidence goes back maybe 15, 20 years ago when I was doing a lot of research on spirulina and Corella. Also, one of the things that kind of PO'd me on the whole spirulina thing, a lot of the people doing research on spirulina were producing information. When you actually look at the scientific paper, all the papers are on Corella, they weren't on spirulina, but they were using them for evidence of how good spirulina worked. So there might be some change in that evidence.